Welcome to Tape 2 in our Gen Fon JKD trapping series. We will continue where we left off and complete our double trap series now. One of the things that can happen is that when a mark is in his boxer lead, in his standard issue left side forward, and not necessarily that he's a boxer right now, but he just happens to be in that lead, and when I try and punch, and he's going to kind of give me this kind of energy, kind of holding center line forward against in a mismatched manner. So he kind of gives me that forward energy there. At this point, this is where you can, again, circling hand to get in. I can circle, that's what I'm trying to do, is to circle right there. This is a detached circling hand. A lot of times we use it when we're more attached. But right now I'm saying as a lead thing, that when that comes here now, he can block it with his right hand, okay? And that's when we come in here. Again, and when I punch, this comes here, and then when he blocks it, I can step off to the side to gain that angle. Or it could be that when he gives me that forward energy and I go here and he blocks with the right, I could just take the advance and go here, and then again we're in a more of a trapping, sweeping position. It can also be that that he will block that after giving that forward obstruction here, and I circle, that he will block it just instinctively with his left hand, which people will do without even sensitivity training. People's brains are really interesting, and they will do very sensitive things sometimes without having done any kind of mystical or even just regular training. Once again, that when I'm here and I gain that whoop, bam, that right there into here. And again, we have all those same variations. Is that since this is a lops out a position now, if you block with that right hand out that way, then we come in here, etc. Again, it continues, but right now we're just taking it up to this point. Now, another really important issue. He's back in his right to right lead. We're back right to right. What often happens is that one of the things is you want to be quick, obviously, but quick in several ways. Quick with sensitivity and quick with your initiation, because see, when I'm facing mark and I gain the attachment, as soon as I gain the attachment, as we've talked about, you want to trap. But a lot of times I may be just a little bit late and I don't pox out successfully. I don't get this down. He just sensed it. He's either really strong or he's sensitive enough to stiff me. So when I come in here and he stiffs me, that's when you lops out. And why will that be often very successful? Is because if I gain the attachment and I pox out and he doesn't let me, why is he not letting me? Because which way am I pushing? That way. He's pushing back towards me. Well, he's pushing back towards me. Let's take advantage. And I know even some people that will pock lop automatically or lop pock automatically just to throw this guy off, to give him mixed signals. But if this guy is not that sharp, you may want to just go direct. Here's the deal. In JKD, one of the primary rules is simplicity, correct? However, there's another side to that coin. The full concept is be as simple as you can be and as sophisticated as you have to be, which is why in Gen Fon family we do punching and locking and grappling and trapping and all sorts of different kinds of training, because you never know what you're going to have to, what kind of method you're going to have to try and pull off, and what is the simplest thing within a given situation takes a broad, sophisticated knowledge. So anyway, so when I face mark, and I again gain that lead attachment, and I pull, but he doesn't let me pull it, because he's going to pull back towards himself a little bit. He doesn't let me pull it. Okay, bang. I didn't get this, so I slap it. Again, I punch, I pull, whoop, so you slap. Because why? I'm pulling, he's resisting which way? Towards him. Well, thank you. That's with the pock. So watch one more time, that when I'm here and I punch, whoop, whoop, bang, back into the pock. And then we have, against if it's a crossing rear barrier, all those same variations. Also, remember that he can, sometimes when you pull, he will actually roll that thing to the outside, so that when I punch and I pull, he will try and counterpull me to the outside, and then you just let it go and come right up the center. Again, that as I pull, I feel him pushing it out, so you just come right up the center. Now, he's going to go back into his boxer lead for a moment here. And when he's in his boxer lead, okay, and I try and punch, and he kind of gives me that forward energy again. That if he gives me that kind of forward energy, and I was trying to put up, I didn't make it, and so I jut on the outside. Again, I punch, but he kind of cut my line, so there's the jerking hand right there, moving off to the outside. It could also be that same kind of situation, that when he's back in his right lead, that when he gives me crossing center line energy with his right hand, okay, but it's not so crossing. See how he didn't block overly wide? And so when he blocks back and I try and cut, and when I cut, he cuts forward towards me. Bam, oh, it didn't work, so I jut sal. Watch again. I come to the inside, he blocks across, I'm trying to get to the outside, so I jut sal. Again, just right here, it can be jut back into the lop, or it can be from here, from the jut on the outside. It can be that from here that I jut and hit on the inside, all of these variations. Now, we come to holding center line with that second obstruction, in this case, the rear obstruction. So when I'm facing Mark, the first one we're going to do is that when I gain the attachment and I slap hand, that he's holding center line. By holding center line, facing a little bit more of the camera, that means that he's not, that's right, this is crossing center line, this is holding center line. That means that he's blocking, but it isn't so far across that we would call it crossing center line. So it is blocking me, but it's to the center line. So that is where we clear that obstruction. Okay, again, that when I meet that barrier, this bang. Now, this is important. From here, just like with the first slap hand, as much as possible, you don't want to go like this and withdraw and hit. But rather, ideally, you punch, it goes in. You meet the obstruction, bam. And this is where the inch punching, the development of a short torquing punch is really important. Or just poke him in the throat of the eye. And you don't have to worry about power quite as much. Again, so I'm coming here, and then I reach that barrier, bam, again, it's right here, and I'm clutching 2 for 1. Notice that I'm trapping the rear hand, but I'm also trapping the lead barrier. One more time, that when I gain that attachment, I trap the first barrier, I do not let this off, but rather I grind across that to get that rear hand, so they're both pinned here, okay, and then bam, into your follow-ups. So that is pak sao to pak sao, or lead pak sao and the rear pak sao, or loi pak, inside pak. Or sometimes it's referred to as double pak sao. So sometimes his center line, he's holding center line, but it's a little bit too tight to go straight in. So we have to do several other things, several other variations. And that is that when I'm here, and I punch, and I pop, and he holds center line. Now, I don't feel like I can just trap this. I need to clear it first, or this is an interesting issue, because it depends on distance a lot of times. If I feel that I could hit first, then sometimes I will hit and then trap. Other times, when I punch and I gain the attachment, I feel that, see, I don't feel that I really have this, so I go in with this first. So it depends a lot, partly on distance, what thing you do. In the same way that when Mark, just as a little digression here, that when he blocks with his lead hand across, okay, that, you see, maybe I want it as a boxer to cross him, but I don't feel I can reach the cross. So that's why I trap and I get in. It's also a matter of safety. Again, just a general trapping principle, that when he blocks across, that now I can cross, but he could also stick this hand in my face as I'm on the way to my cross. See? And then bam, he's coming back with his own. So it's, again, re-emphasizing that we're trapping for safety as well as a way of gaining distance to do a technique sometimes. So in this case, when I punch Mark and he gives me the forward barrier, that when I come to here, that I thought, well, there's just enough of an opening, bang. But if I felt that, it's saying, no, this is just chung choi. Chung choi means just that middle punch. I'm hitting up the center, and now I'm trapping, bouncing it off of his chest. So in other words, that from here, okay, it's a bam, that kind of rhythm. It kind of, from here, it, bam, that's the rhythm. It's kind of a half beat. Now again, when I punch, different people, all within Wing Chun Clan, or different branches, have different variations that they will prefer, such as that when that when I punch, and to here, some will just chung choi pak sao, but you could also open it up. You feel like it's not quite open enough, so you tan sao to open it up with a hit, or tan da. In other words, I go here, op tan da, and then hit. It can also be, one of the distinctions in coming from the JKD aspect of things is that you'll see X amount of traditional Wing Chun people parking like this, whereas we mold it. And more coming from in the Junfan training, it's molded, and so it's even the pak clutches, and the lop doesn't just pull, but there's actually a slapping aspect to it. Everything has, we're trying to pump up the aggressiveness of everything. So again, when I meet that barrier and I pak, okay, some people chung, some people tan. It can also be that if he's really tight with his holding in, that you lai sao. This kind of pulls him forward into it. It's like, almost like a pulling tan as you hit. And then also you have rear lop sao, or loi lop. In other words, that when I punch, that when I'm here, that I pull and then trap. Okay, watch one more time. That I'm here, I punch, right there, I say, oh, I have a handle here, bam, coming back into here. So those are some of the first variations in terms of holding center line if you're coming in with the pak sao. Now, in terms of variations, you can get to that same place through the ball and socket gua choi. So when I'm facing Mark and he gives me the lead center line crossing energy, and we end up where? Same place. He's holding center line. So again, there's the second pak, the inside pak. So again, I'm coming here, and I launch in, meet that barrier, and come in. One more time. That it comes in here, bam, right there. Last time. That I come in, it comes over the top, bang, and because it met center line. It could also be that you have any of those other variations. We don't need to go through every single variation as we were doing before, but just say that when he crosses center line, that I felt, oh, I hit it first, and then with that chung choi, this one, before going on to the trap and the hit. We can also get there through the low hit. In other words, that when he blocks with his lead hand downward, that when I'm here, and I come up here, oh, there's a center line coming in here. And we could get to the low hit from the high reference point. So when he blocks upward with his lead hand, that I roll it down, he blocks down with the same hand, I come up here, and it comes in here, and here we are again. So we're trying to show that aspect of things. Just make sure that you got that shot of that rear hand, that when I go low, back up, bam, back up to here. If I come from the gua choi, when he blocks across the center line, again, center line, so I go up center line, whether there's an intermediate hit or not. And just remember that if the center line is held slightly wide, then we can go for a hit traveling to the other side. In other words, that when I gain the attachment and I pak sao, bam, it's wide enough. You see, it stopped me, but it's enough crossing this way, the pressure, that I can drive this to the solar plexus and then come back up on the other side. Again, I gain the attachment, bam, up, solar plexus, and then back up here. And it can be coming from the gua choi, that when he blocks across, that I see that solar plexus, it seems open. I'm looking at the solar, I say, well, bam, and I check this, come up on this side. And last but not least, again, coming from the low hit, back up to here. One time slow. That I come low, trap it up high, I say, wow, because his attention was going that way. So I shift to the other line and come back up high. Wham. Okay. Although this is kind of, again, there's a whole Jut Sao series of jerk, the snapping jerk, later that we will do. But right now, again, some of this, we're using it a little bit loosely right now with single hand. And one of those cases is that when I gain the attachment and I grab, or lop sao, in other words, I grab, and he kind of holds center line with his rear hand. When he kind of holds center line with his rear hand, I kind of jerk and then hit. Or can be, in particular, that's when it can be here, but it's ideal when he kind of blocks here, because then I have a chance to clutch. In other words, when I punch and I pull, that it's there, I can actually See, jerk, hit, and then come back with the side. In other words, what I'm saying is that when I go here, that meets center line, you can jerk and hit with the same hand, checking here, or you can jerk and hit with the other hand and then trap and come back over. In the same way that when you're exploring and you're kind of moving in here, that you go whoop, and if I get that center line, or the rear hand kind of holding out, just kind of, you can jerk that hand if that's the kind of energy somebody's giving you. If somebody's holding in real tight, boxerly wise, then you're not going to do that kind of thing. But when somebody has kind of a hand extended, they're a little bit nervous, and they're kind of, the hands are out there, that's the kind of person that sometimes you can jut and hit, just as it can be a distraction, it can be a way of entering. The next variation is coming from the standpoint that when I punch him and I lop and I get this kind of attachment, then again, see this kind of center going slightly up and out. We have several variations with this. So when I punch and I gain the attachment, I lop, pam, because I was trying to back fist, and I gain that, then lop and hit. Again, that can be continuous, because when I punch and I lop, you know, hit and lop, that other one comes up, hit and lop, you know, and again, it would be done more aggressively. In other words, like pam, coming forward and forcing him because it's great, you know, you hit straight, and then you see he either's got a block or he gets hit. And if he blocks, then fine, thank you. That's that attitude that you want to take with that one. If, however, he doesn't just block here, but he really blocks wide on that one, then we hopefully have the sensitivity for this variation, that when I punch and I pull and he blocks it wide, that you just come up the center and then you retrieve your lop here on the inside. Again, that when I punch and I lop and it goes wide, whoop, up the center, just let it go. It would be wrong if I try to hold on at that point, because I go here and I lop and he goes out, whoop. See, I should have let it go, which is half the principle of this. Go to the area of least resistance. So when I punch, if it comes just slightly upward, then I can lop it. But if it goes way out, then you let it go, come up the center, and you come back to the inside with your hits. Now, the same thing, even though I slap hand, you can still get that barrier, because a lot of times people will block with this one, and then this one is kind of low for whatever reason, and then it comes up here, because some people, their position is there. From different kinds of karate, it is here, and then therefore it will come up like this against that when you trap that lead barrier. If people are more coming from here, it's going to tend to go across. If somebody is more either in Wing Chun, it will come up this way, or if they're more certain kinds of karate, it will come up this way. So we need to have answers to the different systems. And we don't want to just say there's one way that everybody blocks, because that ain't the way it is. So I'm facing Mark, and when I punch, and I pox out, and I feel this. At this point, one of the things that I can do is that I can trap. This is like a pox out, but instead of trapping across, because that would be trapping to my own hand, I trap it down as I hit this one. Watch again. That I punch, I get this, and so I trap it down as I hit. Again, a lot of time you'll notice that we're not punching like this. We're punching with vertical fist, particularly at the trapping range, because this has a better way of cutting. It's keeping it in tight. And also, when I'm facing Mark, just with his hands down, this, okay, this will kind of feel bad when I hit him. But notice that there's this gap. Here's my body, and my elbow's out here. So this can hurt, or, you know, putting it here, but for training here. But this, now my body is more aligned, so you can generate more force. And that's why you're going to see this, particularly in the trapping, although there is a time when it's going to be like this, but if we're cutting with the fingertips, okay, but still dropping the elbow. Meanwhile, back to this one. So what I'm saying is that when I gain the attachment and I pock, but this one comes up from the inside, bam, that again, you could trap it down. And even if it kind of, there, kind of just climbing over the top of it. It can also be that when I punch and I gain that front attachment and I slap, that if he blocks me wide out, in other words, he panics and he goes way out, so we'll do this slowly, he panics way out, that you just jow it, disengage under to the inside. Again, one man's Hyun Sao is another man's jow. So these are the terms we're using. People will argue endlessly till they're blue in the face as to what's a jow, what's a Hyun, but This is what we're saying now. Okay, so again, I go here, and when he blocks it out, whoop, come back to the inside, regain your trap to make sure that you're guarded as you hit. It could also be that if he did not block out quite as far, but a little bit away from the center line, that when I'm here, it blocks out just to here, that's when I can circle. Watch again. I go here, whoop, I circle, and here again, poke, whatever, grab, headbutt. So that's the Kune sao. And indeed, if it's a little bit tighter in than that, that's when we can do the first Jeet sao variation. The jerking hand where you're trapping both hands. And that's this one, that when I come here, bam, oh, now I pull them both to me, clutch it both, and hit here. Again, so it's here, jerk it, and trap it both as much as possible. Try and keep things as tight as possible. If I'm facing Mark, again, the right to right for right now, and I punch, and he gives me the left hand crossing energy. And I punch, and I go across here, and then he's blocking out with that one. It's the same thing as those other variations with the lop sao. Then I pull it back here. Watch again. So he blocks with his left hand, goes across, block, bam. Because he's kind of blocking it out, he's going to run into the back of my arm. Again, he blocks that hand. I run here, whoop, bam, come in there. Now, again, what the thing is that when he blocks with that hand, I'm just going to try and hit him. But I run into that, so I just pull it. And then coming back into whatever we're going to do. It can also be that, again, that when he blocks with that hand, he blocks wide with that one, so that's okay. You come up the center. Watch one more time. He blocks with that hand, and if he blocks wide going out that way with that hand, then I just roll it to the inside. And then again, trying to keep track of the tools. Let's do last time on that one. Okay, that when he blocks that hand, okay, back up the center, this time back up to here and coming in. And that would be the variation from the mismatched ball and socket. Now again, still dealing with that barrier, but coming from the running hand, or jiao sao. So when I'm facing Mark, whether I get to, this is the position that we're going to try and get to. There are 5 or 6 ways that we can get here, but first we're going to talk about the major things that we can, classes of things that we can do once we get here from 2 different routes. One is that when I hit from the high line, and he gives me forward obstruction, okay, but that's when I jiao and come to here. From here, according to this hand's energy, if it is wide, then one of the things that I can do is I can jiao back low. We slap the thigh, that's a training target for the groin. So in other words, I'm here, and I come in, that's okay, and again, then just whatever follow-ups, but we're just getting it to that point. We're saying what are the initial first routes. Again, I punch, and it goes like, it's as soon as you get this attention here and you see it's going wide, then you come back down low, still guarding. It could also be that, again, there are degrees. So when Mark blocks over here, it could be wide, narrower, narrowest. Any narrower than here, and he's hit. So for each of those places, we have variations. So when, and again, the same thing can happen before we go on to those variations, that if he blocks with his rear hand low, because I hit low, and he blocks that rear hand low, we're in the same place. Whether it was a high reference point and disengaging to the inside, or a low reference point disengaging to the inside, I didn't quite make it, and so here we are. The first variation was from here, going back low, and again, it could be low, high, low. Again, he blocks the rear hand, okay, low up, bam, back down to here. And then coming back up if you feel that that's a threat, or even if you don't think it's a threat, before it becomes a threat. The next variation is that you're going to circle, and that's because from the high reference point that I disengage, it comes to here. I feel if it was too far out here, then it's hard to circle hand. It feels awkward. So, but from here, if our arms are more in line, then that's when you can circle, and you can hit above your trap. From here, you can circle. You see, this hand happened to come, so I can go below. And again, you can shovel it, or you can palm it more traditional with palm edge, more traditional Wing Chun style, but as long as you get some kind of hit that you know you're effective with. Again. And finally, you can do it independent. So when I meet that high reference point and I disengage to here, it could just be that I just independently, bam, as opposed to trapping both hands across. Feels where are the hands, what can you do, and sometimes you just find yourself doing stuff and there's no particular explanation. It's just what you feel like doing. So watch again those three variations on the Hyun Sao. Coming from the low reference point, when he blocks with the rear hand, still keeping the tight guard, I come up, he brings it to there. First was circle and come in high above the hand. Second variation, when I hit low and I bring it up high, okay, Ben brings it up high, and I hit low. And third variation was coming from the low and he blocks the rear hand, he brings it up high, and I just independently, I just circle this out, bang or bang. And those are the primary things. You're either going to jerking hand, okay, which we're going to do now. That's the tightest variation. So in other words, when I hit the high reference point and I go to here, that the jerk hand is when it's just almost there, but that's when I clutch it and then hit. This is the first of a bunch of variations that we're going to do just to show the classes of variations. In other words, I'm here to here, jerk and hit. And I'm clutching them to me. Watch one more time, very slow. But I go here, I disengage and I check, I jerk them to me, and then clutch with one hand as I hit with the other one. I'm tapping the chest again, although hitting throat, eyes, face, or even elbowing, as we will see, would be our preferred tools. But we want to make sure always that we're training in a way that, because he's going to get a turn too. One of the things that is associated with the trapping are a lot of sensitivity drills. We are not going to do any sensitivity drills because as good as they are and as much as they can help your trapping skills, I also believe that you can just develop your sensitivity through trapping drills directly. Clearly, anybody watching this would know that you're not going to be able to develop these skills by yourself. You need to work with somebody. Certainly if there's some kind of Wing Chun teacher or somebody that knows some kinds of trapping, or you get to able to go to the seminars of the different people that do these things, then great. But it does require another person. We've talked about technique, and we've talked about ifs, ands, or buts, but you always need to develop the sensitivity to accomplish these different things. So, for example, when I'm facing Mark, we've done X amount of techniques. So I say, okay, as a way of drilling the sensitivity for the lead barrier, I face Mark. And he either gives me, either the forward obstruction, oh, I trap, or he gives me, he may block out with that lead hand, okay, I go in here, he blocks across with the lead hand, here, he blocks across with the rear hand, okay.
So in this drill, the person providing the obstructions gives random obstructions, whether it's crossing center line inward or outward with the right or the left hand, or holding center line or rising energy. He should feed these barriers at random so that the trapper learns to sense what the barrier is.
And he just keeps doing that over and over. Notice that I'm not taking it from reference point, because that can be, it can be dangerous, because as we all know, nobody's going to get into a fight, come up to you at a bar and say, that was my girlfriend you were looking at. You know, that was, somebody's just going to start to punch, and you've got to gain the attachment offensively and defensively from the punch. So again, he would just choose, you know, I just punch, and what does he do? That was a lop, okay? I just punch, and what does he do? Comes up the center line. What do I do? Okay, to here. What do I do? Okay, so you see? And you just train that repeatedly. That's all the initial barriers to that high line. We're going to go into, a little bit deeper, the Jeet Sao series. There's so many variations, but we'll hopefully at least be able to get some understanding of a number of major expressions of the Jeet Sao principle as a principle. First, let's acknowledge that we have a number of ways to get to the main reference point for a two-handed Jeet. What I mean is that that would be double outside reference point. In other words, that somehow I want to end up here. How I end up there, there are a number of ways. It could be, once again, that I crash and I go to that sector. It could be that when I crash, I go to the mid-sector, but he blocks across with his left hand, and when I get that energy, then I block here, and he gives me the outside energy. Watch it one more time. I go here, I try to get to the middle, but oh, and so I go out to here. It could be that when he punches me, and we'll get more into the defensive trapping off the defense as we go along, I split, and then I jow. And it could be that when he punches, I hit low, and then I jow. And it could be that I hit low at the very beginning, and he blocks with his left hand. And when he blocks with his left hand, I jow, and here we are back again to the double outside reference point. And it could even be that I hit low, he blocks with his right hand, and I trap. I didn't successfully trap, so he blocks with his right hand. I can jow. And then there's also that I go from the high reference point, he blocks it up, I hit down low, and he blocks with the rear hand. And lo and behold, here we are in this place. If I hit him, then great. But if he blocks with that hand, he blocks with the hand again, bang, here we are. Those are the main ways, the main routes by which you will get to the double outside reference point, through which you will now do the Jeet series. In the Jeet series, as we have seen earlier, it can be done loosely with one hand. In other words, instead of tying up both hands, one hand independent can Jeet. And let's just look at that for a moment again. Well, on those we have that if I made it to here, one hand jerking and hitting, because it just didn't have enough, it just wasn't enough awareness in that hand to stop me, because sometimes people, they block, but it's just kind of vague. They're not sure what's happening, and so if it was a really strong blocking energy, then we do something else. Again, we get to here, and as soon as he's aware of this hand, you can jerk and hit with this hand. Bam. And indeed, if I hit here, I can jerk with the right, but hit with the left. And guess what? You can get to here and jerk with the left, hit with the right, and then continue your trapping however it is that you feel you need to do that. That would be kind of the loose version. Again, it can even be used in terms of probing, not just finishing, but probing, because when I'm up here, and here can just, this is loose version. But now we're going to get into the tight version. By the tight, that means that we're going to try and have both hands tied up nice and tidy while we're hitting him nice and tidy. Okay. In the first part of the series, the first one that we've already done, is however we get to that reference point. This is our first variation. And I'm going to take it right now from the high reference point, although, again, it could be from any of those entries. That when I punch and I jow to the deep inside line and I gain this attachment, I clutch them. Notice that I bring them both together. I don't try and have them apart. This is not ideal, although it's still possible to work with it. You try and bring them together with this short jerking movement so that now the left can clutch it as the right hits. Again, so I'm here, swoop, swoop. See, from here, and again, we'll deal with the intermediate hit shortly. Bam. You clutch it, and it's right here, just kind of stuck together while you get this hit. And again, at this point, you can follow up hit. See, this can clutch this way. See, as one comes back, the other one is hitting. So that's variation one, which is however I get to that place, bang, that I clutch it and hit. Variation two is if you weren't successful quite in getting those hands together and you slipped off of the Jeet. In other words, that when I'm here and I take it to this side, sometimes he resists with that hand, and it just kind of, my hand kind of came off. I'm coming up the middle between the hands. I didn't quite get them together, but I still can come up the middle. And sometimes, see, it can come off that hand and then it comes up the middle. It's more ideal, though, if you can get them together. Third variation is that when, again, and again, it can be, as we'll see later, from the defense as well. So let's just show that, just that one prime example, though, of that, is that when he punches, okay, that I go here, and when he blocks that, that's when I can jow, disengage. Okay, at that point, I am going to pull them both to here, but this one comes undone over. Okay, in other words, let's take it a little bit more at this angle here so they can see. In other words, I'll take it from the high reference point again. From the high, back to, here we are to here, I clutch them to the same right shoulder, but it's pulled a little bit this time. So it pulls, so I say up, I will come over the inside. Again, one more time to here. So I'm pulling him to this line. One more time, I'm here, and then I pull it, and I feel that, why would I not just hit here? Because I feel that it's obstructed. Maybe I tried to clutch it to the shoulder, but it's a little bit here, and I feel that he is obstructing this line. That's why, from here, I pull it, I say, oh, I jerked him off to the side a little bit, so I come up this line. That's why you come to the outside lead line. So we have the variations of inside line, midline, and coming over the high lead line. We can take the same thing that when that hand obstructs me and I go here, and if that feels just a little bit sometimes wide, then one of the things that you can do if you didn't decide to just jowl low is that instead of bring it to here, because you felt the hands were a little wide, you just shift the whole body. So you shift to here, again, to this shoulder, clutch, and hit. Again, it comes up here, and hit. Kind of taking it to the shoulder. I'm trying not to here, but just right here. This is fine. Watch again. Okay, so I'm here, and I take it to the line. One more time, here, and I jerk it to here, clutch it, and fire. And again, all these short shots in here that can be applied at that point after, again, hitting on the chest, but get one good one on the throat. It's effective. We can do the same thing that when I come here and I shift him over here, but this hand was a little bit wide. This hand over here is a little bit wide, but I can still try and trap it up as I come up the middle. Again, I'm here, I shift it off this way, come up the middle line. And indeed, when the thing comes, okay, again, it's just fake whoop, I get up to here, and I pull the whole thing off this way, come up his inside line. Again, I'm here, I hit, I shift the whole thing off to my shoulder, let this one disengage under, and hit. And I should notice that the body we're thinking forward and an aggression. In a more traditional Wing Chun context, there's the, certain postural requirements, which in the later Jun Fan, earlier Jun Fan is more obviously Wing Chun and modified Wing Chun. And then as time went on, things changed, as all things do. And Bruce felt there was less less need to do this. And then, of course, there will be some people in the tradition say that if you're not in this particular posture, that it won't work. Well, if you know how to use your power, then whether you do it in the traditional way or whether you do it in the not traditional way, that's the main thing. And we should look at the structure of things as opposed to details that are picayune to the point of not mattering at all. So once again, on that last variation, that when I was here, I clutch it all the way to here and bring it under, all the way over, nice and secure. So we can take those first 6 variations and we can put in an intermediate hit. Because we feel that it's open enough, we feel that we have the awareness, we feel that this guy his structure is loose enough that we can put in an intermediate hit. What do I mean? That means that, say, taking it from, I'm going to hit low, he blocks, that's the case where he blocks the rear hand, and I bring it up high, that from here, that on this first clutch, that I clutch, that I either clutch, hit left, then trap, or I can clutch with the right, hit with the left, and then trap with the right. Those are the 2 main variations on, in terms of intermediate hit. Okay, once again, that I'm here, okay, and that I get that, and that when I clutch, I get, bam, I clutch, and I intermediate hit first. One more time, that I'm here, and this comes up, and as I pull with the right, I hit with the left, and now the left bounces off his chest to clutch, and I hit with my right. You want to get a kind of rhythm eventually, that kind of rhythm, and that's why the chest is a good training target. Just don't, pounding so hard, he's going to be coughing up blood. Okay, so again, from that low reference point, okay, I jut them for both at the same time, but then hit left, hit right. This time, again, I go from the low reference point and then up, and I clutch hitting left, trap, up the middle, right. One more time, I'm hitting low, I come up high, and as I clutch, either you clutch and then intermediate hit, or I hit as I pull, and now you just find yourself either coming above the hands, between the hands. It's going to be in one of these sectors or the other. You're not planning it out. You're just feeling what, you're just kind of doing what feels open. And the third variation is that when I hit low, and this comes up, and I take it off to the shoulder, and I hit, clutch, hit, or indeed, I go high, low, high, and then as I pull, hit, and I wipe it across so that I'm coming over both arms over this barrier. Watch one more time on that one. Okay, I'm here. Okay, one more time, and up. Last time. Okay, and from this point, as soon as I feel this, that's when this one comes around here. Same thing, shifting it off to the inside. Again, we don't take it through the variations. Lo and behold, you know, it's good just to make sure that these have all been considered at least once. So I take it from, I'm going to take it from the high reference point again. And from the high reference point, okay, bring it around to here, and I shift. Again, clutching as I shift, intermediate hit, trap. Again, high reference, back to here. I feel like maybe this is wide enough so that for one of the reasons that you would shift is that at this point, freeze. It's kind of wide. He could hit me with this left hand. Bam. So as a preemptive maneuver, that from here I say, whoop, no, go over here. You're preempting the possibility of that hand hitting. Again, I go here, whoop, bam, and just at this point, because it felt like the structure, I would just go straight, hewn style, come in, whoop, pang. But that's because it's such fine energy. It's, you see, one of the words that, terms that Dan Anastono uses that's really good is he talks about an artificial environment. It is much easier for Mark to just feed me how it feeds me and for me to try and learn to respond, but we're talking about a particular variation. And it's going to be hard with these fine-tuned variations for Mark to always feed me the way I want, so sometimes we're just going to flow out of it. Artificial environment means that he is supposed to give me an exact energy. It's hard to do that when you're talking about increments of this and this and this and this kind of energy. Any energy-based system, you're showing examples, but as soon as you can abandon set technique and just go with training where you're responding to what's happening, that's always the next level towards making it functional. So anyway, again, I go here, here, and as I jerk this way, this one feels like it can hit, come over the inside line. I come here, I jerk them both together, and then hit, trap, hit. I come here, swoop, bang, and I jerk them both together, but they weren't quite close enough, but I still hit, trap, come up the inside line. And I come over here, bang, and indeed, you see, if you felt this guy's structure was loose enough, you could just kind of, hey, whoa, you know, come up the inside line, or you could kind of just drift it so that you can, it's just kind of coming up here to get to this point. At this point, I clutch it off to the side, hit, trap over, and hit. Watch again. Okay, I'm here, bang, and I clutch it to me with the intermediate hit then, and then this hit. One more time. So here, and last time on that one is I go here, and as I pull this way, I feel this one was loose, so I hit, trap, and hit over the inside line deep. Now before we go further and get to some improv, let's also talk about, this is sometimes, some people, this is such a fine motion, the jerking motion is so fine that sometimes people in the beginning have a difficult time with it. So here's some of the things that take less fine tuning, and yet still you're able to use the jut principle, the jut technique. One is that when I come from here and I somehow, however, get this point, that I will push his lead hand as I jerk on the rear hand. This one I'll push this to his rear arm. So it kind of comes like that. So it comes up, and this one kind of crosses it over and hits. Again, it comes up, pull this one down, cross this one over, and hit. Last time, it comes whoop, and comes there. Now, also what's an easier thing to use without having to have a fine motion is that from here, just kind of go koosh. Okay? You just give it the headbutt. You jerk him in, especially now, people tend, when you jerk on them, to start to resist. And when Mark resists, look what happens. He gets pulled towards me. And again, so when he comes towards me, bang, just headbutt. Again, not face butt, but headbutt, top of headbutt, bang, or to the side. And then again, that's where you can come in with elbowing, either keeping this checked, or you could just say at this point, forget it, bam. But the check is always good. Now, coming down a little bit to the midline, is that when I'm here, and you can, as you jerk this, you can shuffle in with the knee to the groin. Again, he's thinking of this. Whoop, he's not thinking of this. And you could knee the thigh for that matter. Bam. And even going down to the foot, you can stomp, which in our terminology is dumb tech. Tech is kicking technique. It's not a commentary. Okay, so it's here and dumb tech with the lead foot or rear foot. And obviously, when I'm coming from here and I bring this up here, as I jut the hands, jerk the hands, if I headbutt, then I can knee, and then I can stomp. It can be a combination because the headbutt throws his head back. He's not aware of the knee, stomp, and then bang, whoop, bam, 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 bam. So there is at least a way to start into the series of the jut technique in various applications. We want to talk about obstructions to a hook using some of these same principles. It is easier, by and large, to gain your attachments and find the reference points from straight and shallow hooking things. But when we jow or disengage, that's essentially a hook. So we can apply that as though we were just doing a raw, again, whether it's a lead hook, whether it's tight or whether it's wide, whether it's wide rear or the tight rear hook, it still can gain a lot of the same attachment. So when I'm facing Mark, and let's say he's in his boxer's lead, okay, that when I'm over here, if he is not very good, and he's in a boxer's lead, that doesn't mean he's a boxer. And if I hook, some people will just still block across with their right hand, okay? So it's a bam, you can come back here. And sometimes that will be because he's in a right lead, okay, that he will block with that one. Again, if I'm throw the right hook, a lot of times the lead barrier, whoop, cut, and go across. Okay, he's back in his left lead as a boxer. He can block up and out, because that's just such a common thing in a lot of martial arts systems. So when he blocks up and out, bam, okay, there's a jut sao coming back in. Or, again, he blocks it, whoop, there's the Hyun sao coming in. And indeed, that when that thing comes there is just pushing it across this way, or when he comes there, coming back this way and then coming back up. So again, against that, whoop, you just monitor, it comes back up this way, and again, if the other hand blocks across, that's, here we are. Oops, little collie sneaking in there, but that's okay with us. We're going to do this at the speed where you can see how the transitions occur. When I punch, I get a barrier. I get another 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 barrier. If this hand blocked back out again, I come back to the inside. I get a barrier. I come back down. I get a barrier. I get a barrier. I get a barrier. It comes around, and I get a barrier. I get a barrier. I get a barrier. Okay? And again, disengage, coming back up. I get a barrier. I get a barrier. Juts out, coming back up. Lop. Coming back up. I pull. I get a barrier. I get a barrier. I get a barrier. I come back down. I get some kind of barrier. And you're constantly just finding this at this speed so that you can, okay? Notice that I'm not trying to wham him with the pox right now because I'm looking for the smoothness of the transition. This is using the material. And again, if you find yourself from this barrier and you get the rear barrier, then there's the jut sao. You push him back out so that you can continue the drill. Again, you get a barrier, You get a barrier, I come around, get this barrier, come back into the jet, come back, and you release it so that you can keep going. Now we could set up we could set up specific combinations. So in other words, that I punch, and he gives me lead barrier, I pok sow, I lop sow, I get the lop sow with the rear hand, and then he blocks across there, and we do that repeatedly. And that's absolutely a good thing to do to get an understanding of possible combinations. But I also think we can go direct as long as we have rapport with our training partner. And sometimes in class, people don't know how to give you rapport, and that's why we set things up in class. But Mark and I have rapport, so we know how to feed each other. So I just go and I hit, and I get a barrier, I get a barrier, and I get a barrier. And you see, even if at this point, let's talk about the second beat here, because you'll notice that sometimes he is pausing. If he's pausing, I don't pause. I'm going to keep on going, or at least that's what I should be doing. In other words, that when I gain the lead attachment and pok sow, and he doesn't block me with the rear hand, bam, I'm not going to say, well, block me already. I want to trap you. Wrong. What you do is you just start punching, and then if something comes, you trap it. So to make sure you've got all these double traps and trapping the lead and the first and the second barrier under your belt, so then you want to do all those trapping combinations, and that can lead to what bad habit? The bad habit of waiting for a second barrier. So to make sure that we don't constantly wait for a second barrier, we have this drill. I just, without him giving me any, I just pok, and then I come across. Now he's going to just let me pok, lop, and then if he, at this point, he might block across, and now I'm on this side, and at this point, I might go down. But the thing is, I am just going to keep, he's not going to move for a minute. He's just going to let me pok, lop. So I get the idea of I'm going to hit. And then when he obstructs it, that's when I go. And he lets me go for a few beats. And he could obstruct me on this beat, or he could obstruct me on this beat. I don't know. But I just keep going and thinking of pocking and lopping. Now, when do I pok lop and when do I straight blast? Somebody might say, well, why isn't he just straight blasting? Why? Because he's giving me this energy. If I had pocked Mark and it really jarred him and his arm dropped away, bam, then yeah, here I go. But if I had not jarred him enough and I still had this barrier, I'm not going to try and jik chung choi over the top of this thing. I have to get him to remove this barrier somehow. So that's what this is indicating for one thing. So he just lets this go for a little bit, pok, lop, and then when something happens, that's when I go with this side. Okay? And I just keep going. I just go and then until I get a barrier. Now, it could be that the barrier rises. And when the barrier rises, that's when I hit this one. And he'll either give me this barrier at that point, okay? Exactly, coming down that way. You get all sorts of weird stuff. Or this one will drop down, okay? And then I'm back up to here. When he crosses center, that's, again, I just go back to this. And we add this into the improv. Bang, bang, and again, back into the improv. But I'm thinking about hitting. Now, this is the inside line. Because on the outside line, we can just keep going here until he hits. But again, you will find yourself that when he punches, okay, that you will find yourself on sometimes the inside line, and then, especially after the second trap. So for example, that when he punches, and I lop, okay, I crashed to gain attachment, I lop, and then when I find myself with that rear hand here, then notice that this rear hand, I am on the inside of this rear hand, and I'm just going to go ahead and pound away. And it could be that when his punch comes, okay, that I come here, okay, or somehow I find myself on the inside line and I just start to alternate hands here. He will do the same thing at this point. In other words, I punch and he could block me at this point, and I come back out here, and I will scoop it for the sake of the drill to come back in alternating hand, and he could block this now. Okay, and we go there. And then again, I will scoop it to the inside, not because that's necessarily where we want to be, or not want to be. It's just this is for the sake of the drill to get the idea that when we're, when we're here, oh, it's just right here, that at a certain point you're going to get an obstruction, okay? And then we can be back here, but I bring it back to the inside for the sake of training that. And we add this in to, now he blocks this somehow, and he blocks this somehow, and he gives me an obstruction somehow, and he gives me an obstruction, and then he doesn't move. until all of a sudden he moves, and that's when I trap, okay? And I just keep going until now maybe I find myself on the inside line, and so I loy lop, or inside lop, okay? And I'm here until I get an obstruction. When I get an obstruction, I roll around it, and then it's back to block, and he blocks, and he obstructs, and he doesn't obstruct, so I just keep on going, okay? Bang, until I finally get, you know, again, you can create the obstruction, or the changing of the obstruction by going around it. See, if this thing seems real strong, then I'm, well, okay. So that's why you go down, back to this other stuff. And you just keep adding the new material back into the improv.
Well, once again, we've run out of time. On tape 3, we will continue the progression by first going into how you defend against somebody counterpunching in the middle of your traps, and then we'll go into counter-trapping. Hope you'll enjoy that tape as well.
Unique Publications has been a leader in martial arts instructional books for over 20 years, with more than 70 titles covering forms as diverse as the Filipino martial arts, Taekwondo, Judo, Aikido, Kung Fu, Karate, Tai Chi, Ninjutsu, and Jeet Kune, and books on legends like Benny the Jet Urquidez and Bruce Lee. You're bound to find the martial art that works best for you. Now you can find the same quality you've come to expect in the Unique Publications video collection. Each video takes you step by step through the process of learning your chosen method of self-defense. With some discipline, perseverance, and training, you'll be on your way to mastering the martial arts. To get your free catalog of martial arts books and videos, call 1-800-332-3330. Take that first step toward your dream. Pick up the phone. Dial 1-800-332-3330. And ask for your free catalog. You can't lose. Unique Publications provides you with your ticket to the world of martial arts. All you have to do is claim it. Keep up with the fast-paced world of the martial arts with Inside Kung Fu and Inside Karate, the finest martial arts magazines available, jam-packed with news, interviews, techniques, health tips, history, self-defense methods, and much, much more. The only way to stay on top of the ever-changing martial arts world is to subscribe now, for yourself or as a gift. Order today. Save over 40% off the newsstand price. Call 1-800-877-5528. Visa and MasterCard are accepted.